Welcome to Your Vision in Focus, exploring the possibilities with EssilorLuxottica Eye Care. I'm Dr. Vicky Zarinko, Senior Manager of Internal Doctor Engagement. In this role with EssilorLuxottica, I get to work with all of our affiliated doctors, including those with LensCrafters, 4Eyes, Target Optical, and Pearl Vision. It is definitely an exciting time to be an optometrist, and the career opportunities are more diverse than ever before. But the biggest leap any of us take in our careers is still the first one, from optometry student to independent clinician. Join us as we bring together optometrists and other members of the eye care industry to help you navigate the earliest steps of your career. From nailing that first interview to paying off debt, finding the right mentor, and discovering the perfect practice setting, we look forward to making that first leap with you.
Welcome to today's episode where we're taking a deep dive into the diverse career paths available to optometrists at EssilorLuxottica. There really is a path for everyone. We're chatting with Doctors Lee, Smedley, and Goukler, who each work in a different practice modality. Our conversations will provide a greater understanding of the realities and benefits of working as an employed optometrist, affiliating as a multi-practice sublease owner, and practicing comprehensive eye exams remotely. So whether you're exploring your options for the first time or contemplating a career transition, this is a can't-miss look at the multitude of modalities that EssilorLuxottica offers optometrists.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Lee, today on Your Vision in Focus. Could you share a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you ended up here at EssilorLuxottica?
Thank you, Vicky, for having me. So I started looking into optometry in undergrad, and I wasn't totally settled on the path yet. Looked for jobs just to get my feet wet, get some experience, really get a feel for whether I saw myself in the field. So I was first hired as an eye care tech for a sublease practice while I was an undergrad. Got a little bit of experience there. Actually continued working as a tech part-time through my optometry schooling. And then graduated and joined as an associate doctor of the sublease practice for a couple of years before I turned into an employed optometrist of LensCrafters. I did that in 2016, and I've been employed with LensCrafters since.
That's so great. What do you think the benefits are of being an employed optometrist?
As a managing optometrist in my practice, I love that I have control of how the eye care practice runs. So I get to train my staff and coach and develop them. I get to set guidelines and rules for how we conduct exams, how the pre-testing goes, how that patient interaction, how that feels like. I get to partner with my store manager. So I get a lot of insight into how we can run the practice.
So even as an employed doctor with EssilorLuxottica, you have these opportunities to lead in your office as well as outside the office. That's great. Sometimes the perception around being affiliated with somebody like EssilorLuxottica is that you're told how to practice. What is your experience as far as the way that you approach your patient care?
So generally speaking, I make my own rules. I'm not told how to practice, how much to dilate, whether I can use certain drops or not. I can, for example, make relationships with my contact lens reps. I can fit whatever I'd like. If I felt comfortable with specialty contact lenses, I can certainly fit specialty contact lenses. Again, I can dilate as much as I can. I think the only thing that would maybe limit somebody in their scope of practice is if you don't have a physical piece of equipment. But beyond that, we can practice however we see fit.
That's great because, being able to practice full scope, based on what you have in the office is really important, especially to a lot of new doctors coming out of school or doctors that are sort of mid-career and maybe thinking of a change. Work-life balance is another thing that we hear a lot about. We're all looking for it. Can you give me an idea about how you achieve work-life balance being an employed optometrist?
Yeah, I think, maybe there's a slight distinction to make here. So we have associate optometrists and we have managing optometrists. Associate optometrists can come in, see their patients, go home at the end of the day, and not have to think about work at all. Managing optometrists, I think we have a little bit more flexibility in how we want to approach balancing patient care with running the eye care business. So I never feel pressured to take my work home with me. But I like to be able to respond to my staff if they have questions when I'm off. I like to be able to do certain things at home. It's my personal preference on how I split my time, but I don't ever feel like I must be checked into work all the time.
That's great. So even as an employee, you have flexibility in the type of role you take, versus, coming in, seeing patients and leaving, or taking more of the business part of it on and really owning that practice that you work in. As part of a large corporate entity like EssilorLuxottica, there is usually an opportunity to grow and develop within the role. So can you talk a little bit about how being part of EssilorLuxottica has allowed you to grow and develop beyond the clinical patient care?
So I went into a healthcare field without any management skills, without any people management. So I joined as an associate optometrist, grew at the store level, became a managing optometrist where I got experience partnering with my store manager, got experience just coaching and training the team that we work with every day. But I also get a chance to speak to my colleagues on weekly calls within our region. I am a regional mentor doctor, so I can spread my wings and help my colleagues, support them, train them, really be just kind of guidance for them. And I'm also a member of the Optometric Advisory Council, so we have a direct channel to speak to our eye care team and to be able to make certain changes and recommendations for the company as a whole.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I love about the role that I do, is that I get to work with you as an Optometric Advisory Council OAC member, and then you also get that role. I work with you as a regional mentor doctor as well, where you can make that connection with all the doctors in your region and be able to be their voice or be able to help them and mentor them as well. So sort of as a final question, with all of your experience and what you've done so far, maybe leave our audience with a little bit of wisdom or a little pearl that they can take home, something maybe you wish you knew back when you started.
I think just very simply, take every opportunity to learn as much as you can. So if you're in a setting where your only job is to see patients, still step out on the floor, talk to your peers, talk to the store management team, learn about the business, learn about what they do every day. You'll be able to spread your wings, maybe take a leadership role, maybe think about other opportunities that you wouldn't have necessarily been exposed to if you just stayed in the lane doing patient care.
Definitely great advice, knowing that there's more out there than you even realize. Yeah. So I think that's definitely a good thing to think about from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you at the next OAC meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Your Vision in Focus podcast. Our guest today is Dr. Donna Goukler. Donna, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your optometry journey?
Yes, thank you for having me. I graduated from optometry school last century, so going on about 28 years of practice. I've worked in several different modalities. I started with a ocular disease residency at a veterans hospital, invaluable experience. I've worked in private practice, corporate affiliated practices, ODMD specialties, and most recently in remote care teleoptometry.
Yeah, your story is funny because it's a lot like mine. I started out with a residency, and then I'd done a little bit of everything too and ended up here. So it's funny, you can start out in one direction and end up somewhere else. But you do remote care primarily, and I think it's important to talk about it. There's a lot of misconceptions about remote care. And I think the first thing to do would be to talk to everybody about how you're able to provide a comprehensive exam in a remote care setting.
Absolutely, because all remote care platforms are not created equal. So, in order to provide remote care properly to a high level and something you can feel proud of, you have to make sure the system is something that you are very comfortable with. When I provide remote care, it feels to me as if I'm in the room with the patient outside of physically touching them. So it's the closest we can get. The patient is, schedules an exam. When they enter the office, they are assigned an optometric technician. They stay with the patient throughout the entire experience, and that's great for the patients to feel comfortable and continuity of care. And also because I'm in touch with the optometric technicians frequently throughout the exam, so we have a good relationship. The patient will do full pre-testing that you would do in person, as well as some additional tests. The equipment is very high level, very comprehensive. There's wavefront aberrometry, tonometry, pachymetry, retinal imaging. We take slit lamp videos of the anterior segment, stereopsis. We're running a pretty comprehensive pre-testing system. When the patient comes into the exam room, after pre-testing with the technician, I'm able to connect via video, live, synchronous, and audio, and I can review all of the test results with the patient. I can show them via my screen, some of their results, which for a lot of patients, that's the first time they've ever seen some of their results, showing them imaging, showing them videos. And I'm able to complete the refraction myself. I control the phoropter remotely through the computer. So it's something that I like to have control over. So I'm doing that myself, not with a remote refracting technician. And I can speak with the patient live and see what they need and, make recommendations, referrals as needed. So outside of hugging them, it's a great experience, pretty high level.
Yeah, I think that you've really explained it well, but understanding that the patient is in person, you are in person but remote during the exam. So the two of you are together in real time. Even if it's virtual, you're still together in real time. Can you talk a little bit about the main differences between an in-person exam and a remote exam as an EssilorLuxottica affiliated doctor?
Absolutely. So with remote care, because the technician's not able to touch the patient, and obviously I'm not in the room with the patient, it is primarily primary care. So we are not treating any disease. There's no emergency visits, no urgent visits. This is primary care for patients in an area that is either underserved, it doesn't have a lot of doctor coverage, and patients that maybe wouldn't have otherwise have gotten care. I've seen patients that have had to travel up to an hour and a half to come for an eye exam. So the remote exam is primary care, prescribing glasses, contact lenses, and then referring as needed to specialists in the area, as you would if they were in person with you.
No, that's really great because access to care is a huge issue even now, but it will be more as time goes on. And being able to give patients that entry point into eye care through a system like this is really key to preserving great vision and giving them that opportunity to get even their glasses and contacts. So I think that's really great that you're able to do that and feel confident about it as well. You talked a little bit about technology. Can you just go through again the specific technologies that you have available to you as you're examining patients?
Okay, so the EssilorLuxottica remote care teleoptometry platform is called Connect. I'm able to review all data through that. In the office with the technician and the patient, they are going through many different facets of pre-testing. So there's, like I said, the autorefraction. They'll do non-contact tonometry, visual field testing. They go. There's pachymetry involved. There's retinal imaging. The technicians are very highly trained. They will take a video of the anterior segment. A big key to the remote exam is the quality of the equipment and the reliability of the equipment, the accuracy, as well as the training of the optometric technician. They need to know how to use this high-tech equipment so that I can have data. I'm really at their mercy. So it's important to have a good relationship with the technician, for them to be very highly trained. I'm confident when I receive a patient that everything was done 100% to the best of their ability, and I can review everything, and I feel that I have a great snapshot of what is going on with the patient before I even connect and then speak with them live to get some further details.
It's funny, remote access care is still relatively new. There's a lot of myths out there, but you actually have access to equipment that I didn't even have as an in-person doctor. So it's a real opportunity to still be able to give that high level of care. Can you talk about any of the myths or dispel any of the myths out there, having done remote care now yourself, and really help people understand what it's about truthfully as somebody who practices it regularly?
Absolutely right. Because, it sounds like a doctor is just going to maybe look at a patient's old glasses that they typed in themselves online and prescribe, so when you're providing teleoptometry and remote care, it's important that it is very high quality care. Because then you're actually doing a disservice to the patient. So, not everything, some care isn't better than nothing. It needs to be very high quality care so that the patient is properly taken care of. I've been doing this for 3.5 years. I do it 4.5 days a week. I still see patients in person a half day a week. And I think some of the myths are that, it's not a full exam. That you're not able to really prescribe glasses adequately. You can't see if someone has cataracts or glaucoma. You're just kind of reviewing data from your couch at 9:00 at night. And that's not true. And so you're providing an exam. It's almost as if you're providing an exam, but looking through the window in the door, as opposed to actually sitting in front of the patient. So I feel that connection, and can get feedback from the patient live as the exam is going on. And I think, some of the myths are that, it's for doctors that are maybe don't want to practice, or, they're barely working, but, it's just as intense as when you're in person. There are no shortcuts. You're doing a great job with this great equipment and these technicians that are fabulous. So you can feel good about it. It doesn't feel like you're sort of cheating your schooling.
So you've given us so much great information about being a remote care doctor. Can you talk a little bit about just some of the life benefits that it's given you to be able to see patients both remotely and in person?
Right. So, my commute is 0. So when I am done seeing patients, I can walk, 30 feet into my kitchen and I start making dinner. So as far as long commutes, I don't have that. So, my work day doesn't take up a huge chunk of my life. I don't commute an hour and then fight traffic also back home. It's great when there's inclement weather. If it's raining or snowing where I am, I still can, sit down and see patients a full day in another state. I have licenses in 10 different states. So, if it's snowing here in Ohio, I can see patients in Florida because they're still open. And there's a lot of flexibility. You can also do this from not necessarily your home. Of course, you have to be in a secure, private, environment to see patients. But there are some colleagues of mine that like to travel, and they'll practice teleoptometry while they're traveling. Other patients, another colleague, I think, has to relocate for just a year or two because of her spouse's job. And instead of trying to get a license, wherever she goes, she can actually just practice remotely while she's temporarily living somewhere. So I think there's a lot of options there and flexibility that you're not tied to an office if you had other needs that you needed to take care of or travel opportunities.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think you even taught me a couple things about remote care that I didn't realize. And I know that everybody listening will take something home with them as well. So we appreciate your time, love what you're doing and taking care of your patients, even when you're far away. So thanks for joining us today and hope to see you soon. Hi, Dr. Smedley. Thank you for joining us on our Your Vision in Focus podcast today. I want to start out by asking you if you could share a little bit about your journey, why you became an optometrist, and how you ended up here in EssilorLuxottica.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. First off, I would say my journey into optometry happened when I was a kid. I had an eye injury, baseball injury to the orbital area here, and had stitches and broken bone and everything else. And during that whole process of healing, we found out that I needed glasses, and I never knew that I didn't need that I needed glasses until that time. And it was kind of eye-opening, and I really enjoyed the process of being able to see for the first time, really, and not even knowing. So I found that kind of fascinating. And then as I went to college, I was looking for work just to pay the bills, and I went into an ophthalmology office, and he hired me on as a refracting technician with no training except on the job. So I did a lot of his workups and stuff like that as I went through undergrad, and then went to optometry school, obviously, and have been doing that ever since. When I was in optometry school, I started working at Lens Crafters, and that's where I got my first intro to EssilorLuxottica or Luxottica at the time. and found it to be a really good company, enjoyed working there, and straight out of school went to work at LensCrafters in Colorado.
So you just went through a lot of the ways you can de-risk starting your own practice by working with a partner like EssilorLuxottica. As a doctor is thinking about a sublease, what are the questions that they should be asking, whether it's to themselves or even as they're talking to recruiters and they're looking at a sublease?
Yeah, I think a doctor considering a sublease really should be asking themselves how they want to practice. Do they want to be somewhere where they can do full scope practice? Do they want to be somewhere where they can go to work and see patients and not have as many worries about all of the business overhead that you can get in some of the other models? When you're asking, a recruiter or maybe a regional about taking on a sublease, I think it's important to be clear about how you want to practice, set goals just so that you're aligned with them. But honestly, just take the leap, because it really is an easy way to get started in private practice inside of an EssilorLuxottica location, which is basically what it is.
And you brought up a few keywords, because there is really a misconception about being affiliated with a company like EssilorLuxottica and being able to practice the way that you want to practice. And you used words like full scope and your private practice. Has that been your experience as you've been an affiliated doctor with EssilorLuxottica, that you practice the way that you want to and you intended to?
Yeah, I think most modalities of practicing optometry right now are affiliated in some way, whether it's, a private equity or EssilorLuxottica or something. The nice thing about the partnership with EssilorLuxottica is all the added benefits of the equipment, the culture, the marketing. You get so many things automatically with such a large group to join into. In my experience, I've always been able to practice the way I want to practice. I've always been able to bring in my own equipment if I want to do extra things. I've never had any holdbacks from being in an affiliated location with EssilorLuxottica. I've been really free to practice as I want to.
And that's so great. And having 5 locations, I know that you're not covering all 5 of them yourself. So you must have brought on some associate doctors. Can you talk a little bit about, how you bring them on and what kind of development opportunities you've provided for them?
Yeah, so associate doctors are great, and I want as many as I can get, right? It's a great way for a doctor, especially a new doctor, coming out of school, to kind of learn the ropes. So even if you can't take your own sublease at the time, you can come into a practice like mine, for example, where we have an opportunity for you to work in a sublease practice. We offer benefits, and it's just a secure way of coming in. I don't know, we've done it for so many years, and we've got a pretty good model now where it makes it easy for young doctors to learn the ropes and be mentored to where they can grow in and maybe have their own practice at some point.
Yeah, I think that's great. Sometimes once we leave school, we end up thinking we're all by ourselves. And this is a great way to get into a group practice setting and be able to learn. And like you said, maybe even learn the ropes and move into your own sublease at some point.
Yeah, I have actually found a lot of the doctors that I talk to are looking for an experienced doctor to be their mentor, to help them kind of learn as they go.
That's awesome. And I always like to end it with, kind of what you've learned over time, or maybe that one thing you wish you knew, or that one piece of advice that you would give somebody out there, whether they are new to practice, a new doctor, or they're thinking of maybe a mid-career change. What would be some kind of parting wisdom you would give them based on what you've learned?
Yeah, from new grads all the way to long time existing doctors, I would just say don't be afraid to jump into an affiliated sublease. It's really a nice way to run your business with low risk, like I was saying. And in this economy where we have so many unknowns and things are expensive, it's really nice to have that security blanket of a big partner like EssilorLuxottica. I would say just jump in and go for it.
Yeah, I agree. You never know where you're going to end up, but there are a lot of different ways to practice, and this is a really great way to start. So I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, and I get to work with you in a lot of different capacities through EssilorLuxottica. So we really appreciate you being here today, and hope to talk to you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate you having me on. Have a great day.